Thank you so much, Alish, for coming on Plant Wisdom. I'm so excited to have you after I heard your spiritual conversation. And so I feel like this is going to be a spiritual journey. I know we're going to go deep here. So, my first question is, what was your life like right before you woke up and discovered spirituality? Because I feel we have a lot in common in how this happened. But again, so unique to what's happened for you. So I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me, first and foremost. I'm so honored. I'm so honored to have this conversation. It's so interesting to think that I don't know, I guess that people look to me to have this conversation because the conversation that you heard me have on Instagram Live with my friend Kristen, she kind of approached me out of the blue as well and said, hey, I want to do this chat about spirituality, and you came to mind. And it's just I don't know, it feels so warm and loving and wonderful, and I'm so honored. So thank you so much for having me.
Definitely.
Let me think. When I think about what my life was like before I woke up and discovered spirituality, it was, in a nutshell, I was just like running on the hamster wheel. It was chaotic. I was like hustling for my worth at work. I was just chasing the next promotion, running from thing to thing. I really, have always been a pretty like awoken person, but I think I really was like, had zero presence at that time. I know I was always feeling exhausted, reaching for validation outside of myself, like whether that be from men, from my wardrobe.
Yeah.
And I was just really focused on like doing so much and not like actually being. And at that time I was working like a 9 to 5, and I did that quote unquote 9 to 5, but it was actually 5 to 9. Like I literally woke up at 5 a.m. I was in my car by 6. I had an hour commute to work. I was there by 7. I worked from 7 to 4. I had another hour commute home. I got home at 5. And then I was like a social person. So then I went out and did things, whether it was like working out or going to the gym or meeting friends for dinner or drinks or whatever, some kind of social evening thing. And I wasn't getting home till 9 o'clock at night. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And I definitely was feeling very not awake at that time.
Yeah, I can relate for sure on all of that. Yeah. And then what in that period, like then I feel like the spiritual awakening doesn't happen out of nowhere. Like you hit some kind of rock bottom or you just realize something that's out of alignment. So what was that for you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was exactly it. I actually hit like a mental and physical rock bottom. I was just sort of running, doing, traveling like 2 weeks out of every month. I was constantly on the go, and my work was really, really fast paced, high stress. I worked with a lot of really, really high overachievers, and it was very competitive. And so at one point, I think that really that stress just like completely caught up with me. We recognize that stress is one of the like many hormones in our complex endocrine system. And when we're like overly stressed out, then all of our other hormones are out of balance, which means, all the hormones that regulate everything from our appetite to how we handle stress, to our sex drive, to, our sex organs and all those things. So for me, all that caught up to me. And it was the summertime. I remember I was going on a 2-week vacation to Iceland, and I wasn't sleeping at all, like at all. And I already feel like I'm a pretty light sleeper, but having that really, really early morning wake up time, being super stressed, working really hard, not sleeping. All of a sudden I was like delirious. Like I was sort of talking to my parents on the phone, and my mom's like, Alisha, you're going on this trip in 2 weeks. I was going to ride horses in Iceland and be on a horse all day long. And she's like, you're delirious. Like you're actually going to get hurt. You need to do something. So, yeah, it was really crazy. I was just like, I was a mess. I was crying all the time. I couldn't think straight. I just was not myself. I went to the doctor, got some sleeping meds. got myself through that vacation. It probably was the awakening actually that I had at the vacation, because I was like, wow, what am I doing with my life? Like, this is what I want to be doing outside, being in nature. And 2 weeks out of a year, like, just isn't enough for me to live a balanced life. And I got back from that vacation, and I remember feeling more exhausted than when I left, and it just wasn't enough reboot for what I needed. So that was the end of, I guess that was the middle of August. And I would say within a month from that, I had decided that I needed to take a sabbatical. So I then took a 3-month sabbatical. I decided, which I don't know, right choice, wrong choice. It was just what was calling to me, was that I was going to pack a backpack and travel the world. And so I took off to New Zealand, Australia, Bali, and that experience, which I call my own, like, eat, pray, love, was really the real awakening that I needed to just, like, I don't know, catapult me out of this societal norm that I was living in, and recognize that there is so much more to life than the way that I was living, like this one track path that I was on.
Yeah.
So,
What an amazing gift, though, that you gave yourself to do that, because not many people are able to do that, or able to walk away because they think they'll lose everything, or they don't know what's on the other side. So that's incredible. And so you just traveled around, and did you do that intuitively, or did you plan things when you were there?
Yeah, it was really intuitive. I just knew that I was going to spend, a month in New Zealand, a month in Australia, and a month in Bali. And from there, it was just like kind of wherever the wind blew me. I had places that I knew I wanted to visit, and a couple of things I knew I wanted to see, but otherwise it was really just intuitive. Or like, if I found someone that I really vibed with, I went off with them and did a few things, like, spent and traveled with them for a couple of days, and then maybe came back to sort of like where my base camp was. And yeah, it was pretty epic. Every place I went, I didn't want to leave, right? It was just, I wanted to continue to stay there, but yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah, you learn so much from traveling, especially on your own. But I went to Bali too in 2018. So yeah, like around when I was like waking up too, and like something about it is like very spiritual and cleansing. Like, I was able to forgive myself by going there, because I feel like they have all these like cleansing sites and ceremonies. So that was probably very healing too.
Totally. I really resonate with what you said there. Yeah, people always say that when you go to Bali, there's like such intense energy. And I flew in on New Year's Eve.
Wow.
I was there for New Year's Day, and I think I cried for like 4 days straight. I just was journaling and crying and journaling and crying, and same as you, just sort of like forgiving myself for the whole, like, all the past that I had. And before that, I had a life in California that wasn't super aligned either. So, there was a lot of baggage that I was carrying of that. And I think I always knew in my heart that it was like time for me to go, but I just couldn't quite, like, it wasn't super crystal clear yet. And I think it was a lot of that was like just sort of catching up with me, and past relationships and all that stuff.
Yes.
So yeah,
that's the best place to go to heal like that, I think.
Totally.
Yeah, and I would love to go to Australia and New Zealand. Those are like next on my list, because I feel like for wellness too, they're such amazing places, especially Australia. Yeah. So this was like a sabbatical, right? So then you were there and you were going to come back to your life in California. Is that
That's
right?
Yeah. Yep. So I came back to my life in California on February 1st, 2019. February 1st, 2019.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I've got the refresh that I needed. I am going to jump back in and do my thing. And because I took a medical leave, I actually was able to get a doctor's note that I could work from home, like sort of part-time as I transitioned in. And so I did that. I worked from home for about a month. And then I started working part-time and like coming into the office. I remember I came into the office and we had this like, I don't know, quarterly all marketing meeting for my team. And I remember like it was yesterday, sitting in there, like kind of listening to all the strategy and all the plans and everything that was sort of laid out for the quarter and stuff that had happened while I was gone. And I was just like, oh man, this isn't right. Like nothing about this is right. Like I can't stand behind any of this anymore. Like the politics and the, the BS of people getting, all these accolades for, things that I just didn't feel in my heart were worthy of them, or things that I knew that I actually had put a ton of energy and effort into, and then other people were getting credit for. And I was like, oh no, this isn't working for me anymore. And I knew sort of right then and there, that it couldn't be that anymore. And it was like within probably 3 or 4 weeks that I was like, no, I'm gonna quit my job and I'm gonna move back to the East Coast.
Okay, now I'm realizing that we also have this in common, because I also went on a medical leave and it was like 3 months and I was working from home like the end of it, and I didn't travel or anything, but I was in New York City and I realized, like you, I was just like, whoa, like this is not right at all anymore. And then I quit. I moved back to Boston. So
Synchronicity, who knew?
I know. And we were both in marketing. Yeah. That's so wow.
And now we're both on this wellness journey. Like, incredible.
That's incredible now, like just realizing that. Wow. And so then you got certified, right, at integrative.
That's
IIN.
right. Yeah. So I started at IIN, like sort of right when I was sort of having that awakening, like, oh no, I'm not going to keep this job anymore. I'm going to move back to the East Coast. People who, knew me well, 3 different people on 3 different occasions, like sort of right when I returned, were like, you really should check out this program called the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And I said, okay, yeah, I'll check it out. And so I signed up in March, like shortly after I got back. And I went in with the intention to just heal myself, right? Like I was still just kind of going through a lot of my own healing and hormonal rebalancing and gut imbalance and all that stuff, mental health, like anxiety. I was still struggling with all of that. And I shortly realized that no, I was here to do something much greater and help serve other people in their own healing. And so that's sort of led me to here. I mean, I went through the year-long training and have started coaching, and now my coaching business is doing great. And
that's awesome. So can you share a few of like the habits that you changed learning from this course? I know for myself too, I changed like my diet and using essential oils and my lifestyle. So what for you stands out and like how you healed yourself?
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of things. I would say like everything was little by little. Like I'm not someone that really believes in like cold turkey. That doesn't really work. I guess maybe for certain things, but not usually for me personally.
Yeah.
So I think kind of the biggest things I changed, no, I don't drink any caffeine. Like
Same.
very, very occasionally I might have like a decaf espresso latte or something.
Same
like
here.
out with a friend. I don't consume any dairy at all. And my diet is like 95% plant-based. I eat, fish and chicken and turkey. I don't really eat any red meat or pork. But I think that's sort of something I didn't like kind of eat that regularly anyways, just like growing up. But I was vegetarian for a long time, but realized that actually wasn't a healthy path for me either. So I have incorporated more like, like I said, fish, turkey, chicken.
Yeah, I've done all this too. Yeah.
I would say some of the other things, in terms of habit changes, like one, I recognize that in California, like I didn't have the support that I needed. And support
Yeah.
it comes in many, many different forms, whether it's from your family, from your friends, from your tribe, from your community, from coaching,
Yeah.
from therapy, like all of those play such a huge role. And so for me, I think a lot of those shifts came in coaching and therapy, which really helped me with my mindset.
Yeah.
And I personally am a really big fan of like mantras or affirmations, which really help shift people from like a more negative mindset to a more like empowering and hopeful one.
Hmm.
And it's not about like, for me, some people think like, mantras and affirmation are all like new age manifestation. And I don't
Yeah.
really believe in that either. Like you can't just like wish it and it comes.
Exactly.
It's really about like that sort of neural reinforcement, like when it comes to sort of those like negative tracks that we've laid in our brain patterning, and like
Yeah.
shifting us out of those into, like I said, a more like empowering and hopeful one. So that's a lot of the work that I've done, I think. And
I've done the same too. When I moved back, I think you make such a good point about when you don't live with some support like that by your community. I felt the same when I was in New York City, even though I had friends and I saw a therapist, but it wasn't like the right fit, like just the place itself. And then when
Mhm.
I moved back, yeah, I did therapy, saw a coach, and I totally believe in affirmations too. Like your mindset does shift once you just read it and then you just are thinking it and then something positive happens right after. So,
Totally.
and it's totally not about toxic positivity and just trying to think your way out of things, but it does shift, like you were saying, those negative tracks that may be in your mindset. So I
Yeah.
totally believe in that too.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, you were in California and then you moved. So, did your awakening, shift any of your relationships? Like, how did
Mm,
that look?
interesting. Yeah, I think like the first thing that sort of comes to mind is like maybe my relationship with um like physical things.
Mm,
I think maybe the travel helped me really disconnect and recognize that like we need so much less. Um, I think also, the filling of the void and the physical things and the buying of clothes and filling the closet and, all the stuff that we consume. I think that was also just sort of part of the lifestyle that I was living. And until I sort of
yeah.
awakened, it was like that outside validation that I was always needing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I would say my relationship with food actually really, really shifted as well. Like on this journey, I decided that every day I would just eat for joy. And so it wasn't
Wow.
about like restricting or not eating certain things, and yeah, it's different when you travel, but I just really was like, you know what, I'm going to look at it as just like I'm eating for joy and everything that I consume. So that really helped shift my relationship with food as well at the same time. And then if I think about like my interpersonal relationships with people, like I've always had strong relationships, like those surface level ones definitely just sort of fell off.
Yeah.
People at that time, kind of like right before I went on my trip, my sabbatical, like people were ghosting me. I had like sort of short-term acquaintances that like kind of just disappeared, and I took all of those as a sign, event at that point they were really hurtful, but
Yeah.
once I sort of like kind of went on my journey, I realized that it was just a sign that I wasn't on my aligned path. And yeah, of course, there were people that were like always there for me from the beginning that really like stayed true. Um, I had friends who continued to show up like time and time again and check in on me. So that was really nice. There's people I still call on, they still call on me.
Yeah.
So that's really beautiful, even though, I don't see them as frequently as I would like to. Many of
It
them live all
is.
around the country, COVID times or
Yeah.
not. There's people that I didn't see that regularly anyway. So
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love how you broke it down by relationships to all different type of things because that's so true. Like they all can change once you like change inside yourself
Hmm.
and sometimes yeah, it takes getting used to like your whole lifestyle is like one way and then you change it and I feel like the eating for joy is the healthiest thing like anyone can do, really.
Totally.
I want to adopt that now.
Yeah. It's really, really powerful. I mean,
Yeah.
oftentimes we create these like rules about food.
Mhm.
Um, like for example, I have a client I'm working with right now, and and she's a teacher, and she always gets gifts, right? People always gift her sweets and treats and things. And we talked just this week about like, what are the rules that you've sort of created for yourself around that? And one of those for her looks like, if I don't consume this gift that I've gotten, then that makes me a bad person or ungrateful, or and
Mm.
that's sort of like just like this underlying belief that like, saying it is like, oh, okay, actually, yeah, that is a rule I've created. But instead of focusing on that, we just focus on eating for joy, or eating for pleasure, or eating for
Yeah.
nourishment. Like you can really kind of pick whatever word fits for you, but just kind of reshifting from the rules to like more gratitude and appreciation for all the food that we eat.
Definitely, and not obligation or, feeling like you should because of other people giving you the gifts
That's right.
and not having rules. Like I feel like you were talking about, like I used to be fully vegan and I did that for about a year and I felt like I had to do it. Like I didn't know that I could have mostly vegan with something, so I just followed this rule and it was kind of crazy. Like I would go travel somewhere, there wouldn't be vegan options. I'm like, okay, I just won't eat. Like it was
Mm,
kind of crazy. I think I did that in Bali, but they had a lot of vegan things. So that wasn't really an issue, but in other places it was. And then
yeah.
I realized like, what am I doing? Like I don't have to live by these crazy rules and I can like now I eat fish too sometimes. And so yeah, so don't for people listening, don't feel like you have to be in one diet and
Mhm.
stick to that.
Yeah. It's our
Yeah,
own life, our own body. We get to make our own rules.
definitely. And so you were talking about, working with your clients and how do you do that? Like specifically, how do you support your clients?
Yeah, I would say mostly it's through, major life transitions,
Yeah.
a lot of mindset shifts and changes, and like imbalances in the body. I would say those are kind of the major like pillars of support. And like logistically, that looks like, either weekly or bi-weekly sessions over
Hmm.
Zoom. There's a lot of support in between because this isn't just like a one-time conversation, right? We're triggered sort of all day long throughout our lives.
Yes.
Um, and so when we're trying to make major change, there's like a lot of support that has to happen in between. And
Yeah.
kind of one of the big hurdles even getting to that point is people, coming to realize that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to like
Hmm.
openly share about what's going on and how you're feeling triggered, and how to kind of shift through kind of these limiting mindset, or kind of these tracks, right, that we've laid in our brain and our mindset for years and years. So
Yeah. I feel like you definitely create that space to be open. Like even at the dinner at Lauren's that she held and or at your place, of course.
yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
you like set the goals and just like we all shared so vulnerably that night. It was like we all made these amazing connections because of like those questions you asked. So yeah, I definitely feel like that's important. And when you said the body pillars, do you mean like you're supporting people with their relationship to food, or do you do like meal plans? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I would say mostly the work I do is around like relationship to food,
Yeah.
uh, which is really a lot of work on mindset and how we're
Yeah.
approaching our food. Like kind of a lot of what I talked about earlier, the guilt that we can carry with us in terms of the rules that we've made around certain foods and things. I guess you could sort of put that into like a generic bucket of disordered eating of some
Yeah.
sort, right?
Yeah.
I would say, a lot of people I coach have a lot of anxiety. That's like kind
Mm-hmm.
of my specialty, I would say, in general. So whether that stems from hormonal imbalances can cause a lot of anxiety, right?
Yeah.
Misalignment with our life, which is kind of where I was talking about sort of major transformation, right?
Yes.
Recognizing that there's areas of our lives that need to shift or change, and really supporting people through that, because often it takes a lot of courage to either up and leave a job, leave a relationship, move different places. I mean, these are all things that many of my clients have gone through.
Mm-hmm.
Started relationships, ended relationships, all that good stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely important. I'm glad that you include all that, because sometimes people feel like, okay, I'll just change my mindset and what I'm eating and like do all the wellness things possible, and then they're still in like this job that is so not right for them, or in a
Mhm.
relationship, and it's like that none of that stuff is going to matter because
That's right.
the lifestyle piece is so important. So
Yeah.
that's incredible.
Yeah, we learned obviously so much of that from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, right? It's like
Hmm.
95% of our life is off the plate, and that other 5% is really on the plate. And that's where
Yeah.
we can sometimes get into trouble, as we lean on this, lean on our plate as
Yeah.
a major coping mechanism. And instead,
Yeah.
like, there's this whole other, you know, 3/4 of the pie that we're not recognizing needs to be rebalanced. So
Yeah, I love that. And it's also like mindsets too. Like you're saying, like if your family, I just thought of this, they ate when they were sad, or you ate when you celebrated,
mm,
and then like food just became kind of that. I feel like that's something that I'm like always working on healing and finding
mhm,
different ways to relate to it. And
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And food can be pleasure, food can be celebration, food can be
yes,
um comfort. It
yep,
can be all those things, and it's good to have that sort of relationship with food too, but we also
exactly.
recognize, like, it can't be the end all be all for that kind of one
Yeah,
emotion or celebration or whatever it is. And
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. And my next question, I'm so excited to talk about this and learn, because I did not know about this, but
Yeah.
what has been your journey with plants and your plant medicine, and how are you working with that now?
Yeah, cool. I'm super psyched for this whole podcast. It's just been so fun to
Yeah.
chat about. So I'll kind of break it down into a couple different buckets. So um, when we think about plants, we think about first and foremost, I think about the food that I eat. So
Yep.
I I truly believe that food is medicine. So I eat organic as much as possible. I eat seasonal as much as possible. I eat really close to the ground and local. And I really believe that food should be really simple
Yes.
and clean. I sometimes really have a funny relationship with like the word clean, because there is no like clean and dirty food, and it just can cause a
Yeah.
stigma. But
Hmm.
when I say clean, I just mean organic,
Right.
local, close to the ground, plant-based, sort of like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And food is really like what helped me heal from my adrenal fatigue and hormonal imbalances. And so I'm really a huge believer in like plants first when it comes to food.
Same here.
Um, and like I mentioned before, I actually was a vegetarian for a long time, like 4 or 5 years.
Oh, wow.
But I think now looking back, I reflect like that actually, I think, was a big part of what made me sick and imbalanced.
Hmm.
I I believe for me and my body, I need animal protein.
Yeah.
And for me, now that looks like eggs and fish mostly, sometimes some turkey, sometimes some chicken.
Yeah.
Um, So other than that, we think of plants like in terms of oils,
Yeah.
and scents and those types of things. And I use kind of all oils and scents really, really, really occasionally because of my previous hormonal imbalances,
Mm.
adrenal fatigue that I went through, which I'm still healing from. I'm probably 85 to 90% there. but scents cause reactions. They cause our pheromones to react in a certain way,
That's
right? That's why
true.
people smell lavender to calm down, or I don't know, the other ones, right? Rose, you know them better than me, like rose to open your heart, and
Yeah.
they cause a chemical like a reaction in your body. And
Yeah,
when your
that's true.
hormones are totally imbalanced, like the last thing you need is for more stimulants to be sending more signals all around. So
Right.
because I'm still healing, I use oil still really occasionally, but I am a big believer in them and I love them and I use them for a really long time. And it's just right now in my life, I'm not using them as frequently.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because I hadn't heard of that perspective before, but what you're saying is like you're already like in a fragile state of your hormones, so adding all these different things that bring you up and maybe like shift you into calmness or all that is going to confuse your body. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a really hard one, I think, for people to grasp because we come in contact with so many scents all day long, right? From our
Yes.
soaps on our hands to our face to our shampoo to our deodorants to our
So
sprays and
much.
our oils and all that stuff. So much. Not to mention the candles and the plugins and the diffusers and all those things just cause a reaction in our body, and our body is overstimulated in that way. If you're having
Yeah.
hormonal imbalance, I'm a big believer in steering clear of scents for some time.
I'm all about the no scented anything, like all
Yeah.
my dishwasher fluid, all everything. Like if
Yeah.
I find out there's fragrance, I like have to throw it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but I think, and that's a perfect example, right? Is like you don't use scents like anywhere else in your life, but you use oils,
Yes.
and that feels supportive and good for you. And
Exactly. Yeah, and we're all different too. Like that's the other part is some people, may think, well, if these oils are good for this person, then they must be good for me, and that's not always true. So you have to like test it out, like what you're saying, and it sounded like it's too much. So you're listening to your body,
yeah,
which is the most important.
yeah, that's right. And then just sort of the last piece when I think of plant medicine, I think of marijuana, mushrooms, and I even consider acid or
Mhm.
LSD sort of in the same category, even though that's more of a synthetic than an actual plant.
That's true.
And I use those to really elevate my consciousness, inspire creativity, just bring greater awareness and better understanding of myself. And I think
Yeah.
there's always a lesson to be learned in the experience, in the trip. And for me, that's just been kind of something newer that I've been exploring and
Yeah.
experimenting with. And it's been so fun. It feels really safe in the environment that I've been doing it with, and the people that I've been experiencing with. Um, for me, like some of the lessons that I feel like I've learned is um, there's often a lot of clarity. So if I have anything that's really been bothering me or I've been unsure about, or yeah, something maybe I'm wavering between, I find that like in doing plant medicine, I always have so much clarity. It's then also followed by like immense gratitude for all that I have, the life that I'm
Yeah.
experiencing, and just more like presence and awareness and peace, I guess, really peace again, and sort of like where I'm at in my journey and all that's like unfolded to get me here, and also at the
Yeah.
pace of which it's unfolded. Because, you know, for so much of my life, I was like on this hamster wheel trying to rush through, trying to like kind of
Yeah.
rush through and change things. And it's like, we're not in control of any of that. Like, we just have to enjoy the ride, I guess. It's one of those cliche sayings.
No, that's so
Um,
true. And these
yeah,
medicines help you do that. I feel like you kind of
yeah,
have to surrender to them and what they want to teach you.
exactly.
So, are you doing it like microdosing or full on taking the normal amount?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So fun. So, a little bit of both, actually.
Yeah.
So, when we think of like acid or mushrooms, those so LSD I've been taking just like like a dose to have an experience for the day. Mushrooms, I have been microdosing, but am planning to do, kind of a regular, whatever you would call like a regular dose based on what I would feel comfortable consuming for myself and my body weight and what what I've heard from people to take, from
Yes.
my guides. So a little bit of both, actually, just been really kind of fun and different.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like exactly what you said, that so resonates, like just really surrendering to the process and really trusting in the experience that I'm having and I'm like meant to have, and the lesson that's supposed to come through, whether it feels, like a positive or a really challenging experience, because you can have both, of course, in the course of
Yeah.
just one experience.
That's so true. And I definitely want to talk to you after this about the mushrooms and things like that, because
Yeah.
I've been feeling called to work with them in that way, but also making sure that it's like very intentional
Yes.
and like integrating it after, because
Mm-hmm.
I have worked with plants in a non-intentional way. I used to smoke a lot of marijuana and for about like 10 years. And I think back to that time, and I was definitely doing it recreationally, not thinking
Of course.
like, why am I doing this? But I did feel like my creativity opened up so much from that. Like I was able to see different perspectives, and I also just felt very calm and grounded, obviously, and like everything's going to be okay. And I didn't worry about how all like things would happen. So I really liked that, but then I liked it a little too much. And then I would, use it in an unhealthy way. So,
Mhm.
but I feel that they all teach us something in a way like that. And so what would you say is a difference, like in experience for yourself of like mushrooms and acid? Like what's, I guess, the differentiator there of like what you've learned through that?
Yeah. Gosh, there's like so many, I mean, there's lots of different blogs you can kind of read to like learn what's best for you and kind of what an average, like
Mhm.
quote unquote, experience is like. I would say, like, in general, acid is, for me, feels very like uplifting. There's, like I said, a lot of clarity and gratitude that comes from that. The
Wow.
visuals are melty, I guess, is the sort of best way to describe it. Things are really kind of swervy and swirly and melty. You're in complete consciousness really the whole time. It's not like, being under the influence or like, kind of intoxicated, where sometimes like, you can have moments of like blacking out and not really knowing what's
Right.
happening or where you are. Like you're really conscious throughout the whole experience. Same for mushrooms, you're also really conscious throughout the whole experience, but the visuals tend to be a lot different. Like you can kind of close your eyes and be in this whole other world. Whereas I find with LSD, your eyes tend to be more open for most people, and you're
Mm,
kind of seeing your current world like in a different lens.
got
And I think,
it.
yeah, and just in terms of visuals, and then again, LSD feels like for me a lot more of a mm, like external experience, versus mushrooms feel like kind of a much more like internal or cerebral experience.
Okay, that's
Both
very
are,
helpful.
yeah,
Right.
both are very cerebral, right? They're
Yeah.
both meant to like really elevate your consciousness and awareness. But I think that's sort of generally the difference. So for example, like I like to enjoy LSD with like another person, because I feel like we
Mhm.
can have our own experience, but also like have an experience together. Whereas like mushrooms, I tend to like prefer to have an experience more on my own, because it is so much more
Yeah.
internal.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And like it sounds like with acid you're very like conscious and aware, able to like converse with others, and but then the mushrooms are like the internal experience. That's so, I'm very fascinated. Like a lot of my teachers that I work with and follow have shared that they've gained so many awarenesses and
Yeah.
feelings by using both of these
Yes.
tools. So
Yeah.
I think that's really cool because it's used intentionally. And I think what you're saying, the visuals, I think I've read this somewhere, like the fractals you see and patterns,
Yes,
like, isn't that actually what spirit looks like? Like, if we could see energy and like 5D consciousness, like,
that's right.
so that's like basically like removing maybe a filter that we have as humans. Is that what you've
Yeah.
heard?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. The last time I did it was snowing, which was crazy. I'd never done it in the snow
Wow.
before. And yeah, there was just like so many like fractals of light and like light prisms and like just like rainbows and things. It was really cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'll just sort of maybe end by saying like anybody who feels like they've got any questions or want to reach out, like when it comes to plant medicine, please do. I'm happy to have a conversation with anybody that feels, curious about this and wants to have maybe a more private conversation about
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
their curiosity.
That's very helpful. That's
Yeah.
great. So yeah, I'll share that in the show notes too, how you can get in touch with Alish. And I know we're gonna have more guests on the show that have had plant medicine experiences,
Mm.
particularly I know with ayahuasca. I have a few people, and I was supposed to do it my last trip to Chile this year. Feels like last year. But it wasn't the time yet. The universe, like we had it planned, and then I showed up and it was like, oh, it's canceled. So not the time, but I feel like that sounds like a very intense
Yeah,
experience, like a purging, combined with visuals, but also like a very, very powerful medicine. So I feel like learning about all these, it's like you have to respect the plant and, like you're saying, feel grateful and honor it because it has so much to teach you that's not in your control.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Been curious about ayahuasca myself. But same, like when the time is right, the
Yep.
medicine will be there. So cool.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was such a beautiful and inspiring conversation. And like you were saying, I think of you of someone on this spiritual path that is such a light and a guide to others. So thank you for being here, for sharing this with us.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. I'm so honored.
Thank you.